Christmas is off. Expect a call from my lawyer. My dad's voicemail burned in my ears as I stared at my empty bank account. For 20 years, I paid their $320,000 mortgage while living in a tiny apartment. I bought the cars they drove. I covered the bills they racked up. I funded vacations they never invited me to join. When I finally said no to my sister's demand for $15,000 to hide her shopping sprees from her husband, my entire family declared war. They threatened legal action. They spread lies about me online. They showed up at my workplace screaming. My father and mother acted like victims while secretly taking out loans against the house I was paying for. My sister recorded and edited our conversations to make me look cruel. They used me as their personal ATM for 2 decades, then threw me away when I stopped giving them money. Now they think I will break and come crawling back. They have no idea what I am about to do. I will not just cut them off. I will make them face every lie, every betrayal, every cruel word. When I am done, they will have nothing left but the truth of what they did to me. This is not just about money. This is about justice. The voicemail played for the 3rd time, my father's voice filling my sparse apartment like poison gas. Christmas is off. Expect a call from my lawyer. Your mother is in tears. I hope you're happy with yourself. I should have felt something. Panic, anger, guilt. Instead, I felt a strange, liberating calm as I crossed to my home office. The combination on the safe turned easily under my fingers. 12 to 2500. Christmas Day, the year my family's exploitation began in earnest. Inside lay a black accordion folder meticulously organized and labeled simply, Family. 20 years of financial servitude documented in bank statements, text messages, emails, and recorded conversations. 20 years of being their personal ATM while being treated as an outsider. 20 years of funding vacations I wasn't invited to join. Paying for celebrations where I was seated at the kids' table despite being 34. Covering emergencies that always coincided with luxury purchases. I didn't know it then, but today would be different. Today, I would finally say no. The $320,000 mortgage I'd been paying on their sprawling suburban home while living in a 1-bedroom apartment. The car payments, the utilities, the credit card, bailouts. All cataloged with the precision of someone who knew deep down this day would come. My sister Elaine's call had come 3 days earlier. I need $15,000 by Friday, she'd said, not even bothering with hello. Mark can't find out about the credit cards. For the first time in 20 years, I hesitated. I need to think about it. The silence on the line was deafening. Then, are you serious right now? After everything we've done for you? I almost laughed. What exactly have you done for me, Elaine? Who do you think convinced Mom and Dad to let you move back home after college when you couldn't get your shit together? Who defended you when you couldn't make it to Dad's retirement party? God, you're so selfish. Both lies. I'd never moved back home. I'd bought my apartment straight out of college, and I'd missed Dad's retirement party because I was working overtime to cover their property tax bill. Looking back, I should have seen the pattern years ago. The constant lies, the rewriting of history, the emotional blackmail disguised as family, loyalty. I'll call you tomorrow, I said quietly. That night I couldn't sleep. I scrolled through social media, a habit I'd developed to keep tabs on the family that increasingly excluded me. There it was, posted just 2 hours after our call. A photo of my parents and sister on a yacht in the Bahamas. Family time is the best time. Blessed, read the caption. The same Bahamas trip they'd told me they couldn't afford when I suggested joining them. The same month they'd asked for $5,000 for urgent property taxes. The next morning I called Elaine. No, I said simply. What do you mean, no? She sputtered. I mean no. I'm not giving you $15,000. I'm not giving you anything anymore. Within hours, my phone exploded with notifications. My sister had posted a tearful video about how her struggling brother had abandoned her in her time of need, conveniently forgetting to mention the $50,000 I'd already given her in the past year. My parents called 12 times. I let every call go to voicemail. The family group chat detonated with accusations of selfishness, ingratitude, betrayal. I didn't realize at the time, but their reaction confirmed everything I'd suspected. I wasn't family. I was a resource. Then came my father's final voicemail. Christmas was off, as if I'd ever truly been included. I called my grandfather, the only family member who'd ever seen through the facade. "They're threatening to sue me, Grandpa." "They won't," he said firmly. "They can't afford to lose you." "I think I'm done," I whispered. There was a long pause. "I've been waiting for you to say that for 15 years, son. Do what you need to do. I've got your back." As I hung up, I felt something unfamiliar. Freedom. I opened my laptop and logged into my online banking. It was time. The mortgage company representative sounded bored. "You understand that removing yourself as cosigner doesn't eliminate your obligation for existing debt, correct?" "I understand. I've made all payments to date. I'm just removing myself from future obligation." "And the primary borrowers are aware of this change?" I thought of the vacation photos, the threatening voicemail, the years of exclusion while paying their bills. "They're fully aware of the changes being made to our financial arrangement. Not a lie. They just didn't know the specifics yet." Next came the utilities. Electricity, water, gas, internet, all automatically withdrawn from my accounts each month. One by one, I called and removed my payment information. The subscriptions followed. Streaming services, meal delivery kits, wine clubs, gym memberships, services they enjoyed while I pinched pennies. My phone continued to vibrate with messages and calls. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the systematic dismantling of my financial imprisonment. I never suspected my small act of rebellion would trigger the complete implosion of their carefully constructed world of lies. The last call I made was to my grandfather. "It's done," I said. "Are you sure you'll be okay?" "They might try to lean on you next," he chuckled. "Let them try. I've been keeping my own records, Jack. I've watched what they've done to you. In fact, I have something you might want to add to your collection." 2 days later, a package arrived, containing a thumb drive. On it were recordings of family gatherings I hadn't attended, conversations where my parents and sister laughed about how much they were bleeding the golden goose, discussions of vacations deliberately planned when I couldn't attend, explicit strategies for extracting more money from me. "Your mother thinks you'll never cut them off," my grandfather had recorded my father saying. "Too soft-hearted, but we better set up a backup plan just in case." The backup plan apparently was threatening legal action. How predictable. 2 weeks passed in silence. I went to work, came home, and waited. The mortgage payment was due on the 15th. On the 16th, my phone exploded again. First my sister. "The mortgage payment bounced. What did you do?" Then my mother. "The bank called about the mortgage. Fix this now." Finally, my father. "You've gone too far. We're meeting with our lawyer tomorrow." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I transferred the money I would have spent on their mortgage into a new account at a different bank. Even then, I didn't grasp how completely I would dismantle the foundation of their manipulative empire. The next day, they showed up at my workplace. My father's face was red with rage, my mother tear-stained, my sister recording on her phone as they demanded to see me. Security escorted them out while I watched from my office window, calmly documenting the incident. That night, I received notification of unusual login attempts on my bank accounts. The IP address matched my parents' home. I changed all my passwords and enabled two-factor authentication, then documented the attempted breach. My sister's tearful Instagram post appeared hours later. "When family betrays you during your darkest hour, you're heartbroken." The comment section filled with sympathy from people who knew nothing of the truth. I remained silent, adding each post, each message, each call to my documentation. The narrative they were creating bore no resemblance to reality, but reality had never mattered to them. My grandfather called with warnings. "They're telling everyone you're having some kind of breakdown. They say you promised to support them. In retirement, and now you've gone back on your word. Let them talk, I replied. I have the receipts. And I did. 2 decades worth of them. My revenge was just beginning. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday. Inside was a formal notice from Henderson and Associates, attorneys at law, claiming I had breached verbal contracts to provide ongoing financial support to my family in exchange for considerable emotional and professional assistance throughout your formative years. I almost admired their audacity. I took the letter to Patricia Winters, a partner at the city's most prestigious law firm. She reviewed my documentation in silence, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "Mr. Douglas," she said finally, "how long have you been recording your family conversations?" "Since I turned 18. It's legal in our state. Single-party consent." She nodded slowly. "And these financial records? All these payments?" "All from my accounts to theirs. I have the original stored in a safety deposit box. I never expected my meticulous record-keeping would become my most powerful weapon." "And they excluded you from family events while you were funding their lifestyle?" I showed her the social media posts. Vacations, celebrations, holidays. All paid for with my money, all without my presence. She removed her glasses. "I rarely say this, Mr. Douglas, but this case is almost insultingly simple. They have no grounds to sue you. None. In fact, if anyone has a case here, it's you." The cease and desist letter she drafted was a masterpiece of legal precision, detailing the harassment, the financial exploitation, the attempted unauthorized access to my accounts. It concluded with a clear warning that any further legal threats would result in a countersuit for harassment and attempted extortion. My grandfather called the day after the letter would have arrived. "They're panicking," he said, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. "Your father tried to refinance the house. The bank turned him down. Their credit is shot. There's something else you should know," he continued, his voice lowering. "I was going through some old papers and found loan documents. They've been borrowing against the house for years. Second and third mortgages, luxury cars, timeshares, investment schemes, all while telling you they needed money for essentials." The revelation should have hurt. Instead, it simply confirmed what I'd always suspected. I wasn't family. I was a resource to be drained. Looking back, I can see now that every emergency was a calculated extraction of my finances. Every crisis was manufactured to trigger my sense of obligation. That night, I began building a website. Simple, password-protected, meticulously organized. Every financial record, every manipulative text, every exclusionary social media post juxtaposed with bank transfers showing I'd funded the events. The recordings from my grandfather, the attempted breaches of my accounts, the legal threats. 2 decades of exploitation laid bare in irrefutable detail. When it was complete, I sent the link and a temporary password to 3 people: my lawyer, my parents' lawyer, and my grandfather. The lawsuit was withdrawn the next day. The family silence lasted exactly 1 week before my mother called. Her voice honey sweet. "Jack, darling, we need to talk. This whole thing has gotten so out of hand. We're willing to forgive you if you'll just come home and we can work this out like family." Forgive me. As if I were the transgressor. Every time they spoke, I could hear the manipulation more clearly, the subtle shifts in tone, the implied guilt, the rewriting of reality. "There's nothing to work out," I replied evenly. "I'm no longer financially supporting any of you. That's the only change. But the mortgage is in your names. I was paying it out of kindness, not obligation. We'll lose the house." "That seems likely." Her voice hardened. "After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Please, enlighten me." The silence stretched between us. Finally, "You won't get away with this. Family is forever, Jack. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've thrown away." I ended the call and blocked her number. The next day, I received a promotion at work, one that would require relocation. I accepted immediately. As I packed my modest apartment, I felt lighter with each box. I was dismantling not just my physical space, but the psychological prison I'd inhabited for 2 decades. I never imagined that saying no would be the catalyst for such profound liberation. My grandfather helped me move, his arthritis forgotten in his enthusiasm for my fresh start. They found out about the foreclosure date, he told me as we drove to my new city. December 25th, Christmas Day, 1 year to the day after your father's voicemail. Poetic justice, I murmured. The universe has a sense of humor, he agreed. Oh, and your sister's husband found out about the credit cards. He's filed for divorce. I felt a momentary pang, not for my sister, but for her children. Will they be okay? The kids? Mark's a good father. They'll be better off with the truth. As we drove toward my new life, I realized I was finally free, not just financially, but emotionally. The burden I'd carried for 20 years had been set down, examined, and deliberately left behind. My new life took shape with surprising ease. A spacious apartment with a view of the city. Colleagues who became friends, dating for the first time in years. Weekly calls with my grandfather, who delighted in updating me on the family fallout. Your parents are telling everyone who'll listen that you abandoned them in their time of need, he reported. Fortunately, fewer people are listening now. I may have shared some documentation with your Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah, my mother's imperious older sister, was the family matriarch and keeper of social standing. Her judgment carried weight. You didn't. I did. She always suspected something was off about how they treated you. Now the extended family knows too. Your parents have been uninvited from Thanksgiving. I smiled at the petty justice of it. My parents valued appearance above all else. Social ostracism would sting far more than financial hardship. What I didn't anticipate was how thoroughly their facade would crumble when subjected to the harsh light of truth. 3 months before the foreclosure date, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Jack? My sister's voice was small, broken in a way I'd never heard before. Please don't hang up. What do you want, Elaine? I need to apologize. You were right about everything. Mom and Dad used both of us, just in different ways. They trained me to help manipulate you. I see that now. I said nothing, waiting. Mark left me. He took the kids. I'm staying in a friend's guest room. Mom and Dad are losing the house. Her voice cracked. Everything's falling apart, and I finally understand what we did to you all these years. For a moment, just one moment, I felt a flicker of compassion. 20 years of conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully. Could we talk, in person? I'd like to try to make things right. I miss my brother. The vulnerability in her voice seemed genuine. After a long pause, I agreed to meet her at a cafe halfway between our cities. The meeting never happened. The next day, an edited recording of our conversation appeared on her social media accounts. My careful responses spliced between fabricated questions to make it sound like I was gloating over their misfortune, rejoicing in their suffering. My brother's true colors, read her caption. He orchestrated our family's destruction for revenge. Even then, even after everything, they were still trying to manipulate the narrative, still trying to cast me as the villain in their self-created tragedy. The manipulation was clumsy, obvious to anyone who knew digital audio. But it was enough to reignite sympathy from her followers, enough to paint me as the villain once more. It was the final push I needed. That evening, I removed the password from the website documenting their exploitation. I sent the link to every family member, every family friend, every connection we shared. I posted it publicly on my own long-dormant social media accounts with a simple message. For 20 years, I financially supported my family while they excluded me, mocked me, and exploited me. When I stopped, they threatened legal action. Here is the complete documented truth. I offer no apologies and seek no sympathy. I simply choose to no longer participate in my own destruction. Within hours, the link had been shared hundreds of times. My sister's manipulative posts disappeared. My parents' social accounts went silent. People I hadn't heard from in years sent messages of shock and support. I never could have predicted how swiftly the truth would dismantle their carefully constructed lies. My phone rang again. My grandfather. "Well," he said, "you certainly nuked that bridge from orbit. Was it too much?" "No," he said firmly. "It was exactly enough. The truth deserves daylight, Jack." The foreclosure date approached. I took December 25th off work and drove back to my hometown. Not to save them. That option had died with my sister's final manipulation. But to witness the end of a chapter. My grandfather met me at a coffee shop across from the courthouse where the auction would take place. We sat in silence, watching as my parents arrived, faces drawn in gray. They didn't see us until they reached the courthouse steps. My father spotted me first, his face contorted with rage. "You!" he shouted, striding toward our table. "You did this to us, your own family." People turned to stare as my mother joined him, her designer handbag incongruous with her distress. "How could you sit there drinking coffee while we lose our home? What kind of son are you?" I met their gaze calmly. The kind who paid your mortgage for 15 years without thanks or inclusion. The kind who funded vacations I wasn't invited to join. The kind who finally decided to stop. "We gave you life," my father shouted, drawing more attention. "And I gave you $320,000, I replied evenly. "I think we're even." Security approached as my father's shouts grew louder, my mother's tears more theatrical. They were escorted away, their public mask of dignified victimhood shattered in front of the very community whose opinion they valued above all else. I had no idea then how thoroughly I would dismantle their carefully constructed social facade. My grandfather squeezed my shoulder. "Let's go. You've seen enough." As we walked away, I felt not triumph but completion. The circle had closed. The debt, emotional, not financial, had been paid in full. 1 year later, my new home filled with the scents of pine and cinnamon. The spacious dining room gleamed with candlelight as I set the table for Christmas dinner. 8 places, each with a small gift beside the plate. My grandfather arrived first, his step lighter than I'd seen in years. "Merry Christmas, Jack. The place looks wonderful." "Thanks for coming," I said, hugging him. "It wouldn't be Christmas without you." The doorbell rang again. Mark, my sister's ex-husband, entered with my niece and nephew. The children ran to me with excited hugs. A relationship rebuilt through weekend visits and video calls, free from the toxic atmosphere that had poisoned our family. "Thanks for having us," Mark said, handing me a bottle of wine. Our unlikely friendship had been one of the past year's unexpected gifts. After the divorce, he'd reached out, wanting the children to maintain a connection with their uncle. We'd discovered we had much in common besides being manipulated by the same family. The final guests arrived, friends from work and my new life, people who knew me as I was, not as the family ATM I'd been cast as for so long. Looking back, I never imagined that cutting ties with my toxic family would lead to such genuine connection with others. Dinner was filled with genuine laughter and warmth. No performances, no hidden agendas, no subtle digs or financial demands disguised as conversation. Just people who enjoyed each other's company, breaking bread and sharing stories. As we finished dessert, my phone rang. Everyone fell silent as I checked the screen. My mother's number. I answered and put it on speaker. "Jack." Her voice was tight, controlled. "I thought you should know we're being evicted from the apartment next week. Your father's health is declining. We have nowhere to go." I looked around the table at the faces of my chosen family. My grandfather nodded slightly. "That's unfortunate," I said calmly. "The mortgage on your apartment is being foreclosed too. Merry Christmas." I hung up and placed the phone face down on the table. Mark stared at me. "The mortgage on their apartment? What does that mean?" I couldn't help the smile that spread across my face. 6 months ago, Whistling Pines Property, management sent a letter to all tenants announcing new ownership. The company was purchased by JD Holdings, LLC. Understanding dawned in my grandfather's eyes. You bought their apartment building. Through a shell corporation, yes. They never knew they were paying rent to me. I purchased the building's mortgage at a discount when the previous owner faced bankruptcy, the same strategy they tried to use against me with their lawsuit. The table erupted in astonished laughter. I never dreamed my revenge would be so perfectly symmetrical, so poetically just. What will happen to them? My niece asked, old enough to understand the situation but young enough to still feel concern. I looked at her innocent face and realized that beneath my calculated revenge lay a deeper motivation, breaking the cycle for the next generation. They won't be homeless, I said gently. Tomorrow they'll receive notice that they qualify for one of the subsidized senior apartments in Grandpa's building. The rent will be adjusted to match their Social Security income. You're helping them? Mark asked incredulously. I'm ensuring they face consequences proportionate to their actions, I corrected. They'll live modestly but safely, with no excess to fund manipulation or maintain appearances. They'll be neighbors with the very people they've spent their lives trying to impress and outdo. My grandfather raised his glass. To justice with mercy, a fine line few can walk. As glasses clinked, I felt the final piece fall into place. My revenge had never been about destroying them, but about freeing myself and protecting others from their manipulation. In the end, I'd become something they never were. Fair. The remainder of the evening passed in gentle conversation and board games. As my guests departed with leftovers and warm embraces, I stood in the doorway of my home, truly mine in every sense, and felt complete. The voicemail that had started it all, "Christmas is off," had actually been the beginning. Christmas, family, connection. They weren't off. They were simply being redefined, rebuilt on a foundation of respect rather than exploitation. I still remember the day everything changed, the day I finally said no to my sister's demands, the day I took back my life from those who saw me only as a resource to exploit. I closed the door on the cold night, thinking of my parents in their soon-to-be former apartment surrounded by the consequences of their choices. Their Christmas was indeed off, permanently. Mine was just beginning. The new year brought unexpected developments. My mother called again, her voice subdued. We received the notice about the subsidized apartment. And your father refuses to move in, says he won't accept charity. I laughed at the irony. It's not charity. It's the natural consequence of your actions. The apartment or the street. Your choice. How can you be so cold? We're your parents. You were my ATM card. I was yours. The difference is I never consented to the arrangement. 2 weeks later, my grandfather reported they'd moved into the subsidized apartment. My father was spotted washing his own car for the first time in decades. My mother had taken a part-time job at the local library. When I look back at who I was before, I hardly recognize that person. The one who kept giving, kept hoping for inclusion, kept making excuses for their behavior. Spring brought another surprise. Mark called to tell me my sister had completed rehab for her shopping addiction. She was working as a cashier at a grocery store. She'd asked about seeing her children. What do you think? He asked. I think people can change when they have no other choice, I replied. But verify everything. Summer arrived. The children stayed with me for 2 weeks. We went hiking, swimming, to amusement parks. Things I'd never experienced as a child because my parents always claimed they couldn't afford such luxuries, despite their secret loans and vacations. My niece asked about her grandparents one evening. Why don't we ever see them? How do you explain exploitation to a child? How do you describe the slow erosion of self-worth that comes from being valued only for what you can provide? Sometimes, people don't know how to love without hurting others, I said finally. Your grandparents need to learn that lesson. Fall brought news that my father had suffered a minor heart attack. For a moment I felt that old pull of obligation. The programming ran deep, but I didn't rush to their side. I didn't offer money. I sent a get-well card with a gift certificate for a meal delivery service. Practical, impersonal, appropriate. My grandfather reported that my mother had cried upon receiving it. She said it was the kindest thing anyone had done for them in months. The irony wasn't lost on me. The bare minimum felt like generosity to people who had taken everything for granted. As another Christmas approached, I found myself reflecting on the journey, the pain, the liberation, the rebuilding. I hadn't just escaped financial exploitation. I'd broken free from a warped conception of family, one that valued appearance over substance, extraction over contribution, control over love. In redefining my boundaries, I'd discovered a capacity for genuine connection I never knew existed. That's the thing about letting go of toxic relationships. The space they once occupied doesn't remain empty. It fills with possibilities you never imagined when your energy was consumed by maintaining the unsustainable. My revenge hadn't been about making them suffer. It had been about forcing them to live in the reality they'd created, without me as their safety net, without me as their scapegoat, without me as their unlimited resource. The second Christmas after my escape dawned bright and cold. My home, once again filled with the scent of pine and cinnamon, had become a sanctuary, a place of genuine connection rather than enforced obligation. This year, I'd expanded the guest list. My grandfather, of course, Mark and the children, my friends from work, but also Aunt Sarah, who had reached out after seeing my evidence website, 2 cousins who'd always sensed something was off about how my parents treated me, even my sister's ex-best friend, who had distanced herself after witnessing one too many manipulative episodes. A chosen family built on mutual respect rather than exploitation. I was arranging presents under the tree when my phone rang, an unknown number. Jack speaking. It's me. My sister's voice. Softer than I remembered, less entitled. I almost hung up immediately. Almost. I never imagined I'd hear from her again after her social media betrayal. What do you want, Elaine? I've been in therapy for a year. My counselor suggested I make amends as part of my recovery. Amends. I know it doesn't change anything. I know I can't undo what I did. The manipulation, the edited recording, everything. But I wanted you to know I understand now. What we did to you was wrong. All of it. I remained silent, waiting. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking to be part of your life again. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. How Mom and Dad used both of us. How I became their weapon against you. I'm sorry. It was the first apology from any of them that didn't include an immediate demand. Thank you for calling, Elaine. That's it, I won't bother you again. She hung up before I could respond. My grandfather arrived an hour later, his arms full of gifts. Merry Christmas, Jack. I helped him with his coat. Merry Christmas, Grandpa. How are my parents? He gave me a knowing look. Settling into their new reality. Your father complains constantly about the small apartment. Your mother has joined a book club. Any more legal threats? No. He chuckled. Their lawyer refuses to take their calls now. Something about unpaid bills. Looking back, I never expected my parents' social network to abandon them so completely once the truth was exposed. The doorbell rang again. Mark and the children tumbled in, bringing chaos and laughter. More guests arrived. Soon the house was filled with conversation and warmth. During dinner, my niece asked about her mother. Has she called you? She told me she was going to. I met Mark's eyes across the table. He nodded slightly. She did call this morning. What did she say? I chose my words carefully. She said she's been working on becoming a better person, that she understands she made mistakes. My niece nodded solemnly. That's what she told me too. Do you believe her? The question hung in the air. Did I believe her? Could I believe her after everything? I believe she wants to change, I said finally. Time will tell if she can. My grandfather squeezed my shoulder as he passed behind me. A silent acknowledgement of the complexity of the situation. After dinner, as we gathered in the living room for gifts, my phone rang again. My mother's number. I excused myself and took the call in my study. Jack, it's Mom. I know who it is. I just wanted to wish you Merry Christmas. The words sounded strange coming from her, tentative, without the usual undercurrent of demand. Merry Christmas, I replied neutrally. Your father and I received your card. I'd sent them a simple holiday card. No money, no invitation, just acknowledgement of the season. We appreciated it, she continued. I know you don't owe us anything. I almost dropped the phone. In 2 decades, I'd never heard her acknowledge that. I didn't know then how much had truly changed, whether this was just another manipulation tactic or the beginning of genuine awareness. How's Dad's health? I asked, changing the subject. Better. The subsidized housing program connected us with a health center. They're managing his medications properly now. Good. An awkward silence stretched between us. Jack, I know we can't go back. I know we destroyed your trust, but I want you to know that I understand now what we did, how we treated you like a resource instead of a son. I'm sorry. The second apology in one day. From the people who had spent decades telling me I was the one who should be grateful to them. Thank you for saying that, I replied, still cautious. I don't expect forgiveness, I just wanted you to know. She cleared her throat. I should let you get back to your guests. She hung up. I rejoined the party, where gifts were being distributed. My mind still processing the unexpected call. Aunt Sarah cornered me by the dessert table. You look like you've seen a ghost. My mother just apologized, no strings attached. She raised an eyebrow. People can change when they have no other options. Your parents lost everything, their home, their status, their social circle, their financial security. Only then did they begin to see what they'd done. Do you think it's genuine? Does it matter? You've built a life without them. Their redemption is their journey, not yours. I considered her words as the evening progressed. The laughter of the children, the gentle conversations among adults. This was my family now. Chosen, not obligated. As guests began to leave, my grandfather pulled me aside. I have a proposal. Your parents' lease on the subsidized apartment is up for review next month. And I'm thinking of moving to a retirement community. My house would be empty. I stared at him. You want my parents to move into your house? With conditions, very strict conditions. His eyes twinkled with mischief. A modest rent, adjusted to their income, no modifications to the property without permission, and monthly reviews with a financial counselor I've selected, a former forensic accountant who specializes in spending addiction. You're serious. They need to learn how to live within their means. Something they never did when they had you as their personal bank. When I think about it now, I realize how perfectly the consequences had aligned with their actions. Not destruction, education. It's your house, Grandpa, your decision. He patted my hand. I wanted your blessing. They've hurt you the most. I considered it. If it helps them truly change, I support it. But the first hint of their old patterns, they're out. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I sat by the Christmas tree, reflecting on the unexpected turns of the day. 2 apologies, a grandfather's wisdom, a path forward that included accountability rather than destruction. My revenge had evolved into something more complex than I'd initially imagined. Not just the dismantling of their fabricated reality, but the potential for something new to emerge from the ruins. Whether they could truly change remained to be seen. But for the first time, they were facing the natural consequences of their actions without me as their safety net. And I was free. Free to choose connection over obligation, boundaries over exploitation, authenticity over performance. The Christmas my father had declared off 2 years ago had indeed been canceled, but in its place had emerged something genuine, something earned rather than extracted, something real. Spring arrived with unexpected news. My grandfather's health had taken a turn. The move to the retirement community was accelerated. My parents surprisingly helped with the transition. They painted rooms, packed boxes, drove him to doctor appointments. I flew in to assist, prepared for tension. Instead, I found a strange new dynamic. My father, subdued. My mother, solicitous toward my grandfather, but careful around me. Both of them working without complaint, without expectation of reward. They've been like this for months, my grandfather confided as we sorted through his books. At first, I thought it was an act, but there's been no backsliding. No manipulation, no demands. I remained skeptical. People don't change that fundamentally. Desperation changes people, he replied. So does losing everything they valued. Your mother told me something interesting yesterday. She said, watching you build a life of genuine connection made her realize what they'd thrown away by treating you like an ATM. My sister arrived to help on the second day. Her appearance had changed. Simpler clothes, no designer handbag. Hair pulled back practically. She greeted me with a nod, not presuming more would be welcome. We worked in different rooms, avoiding direct interaction, until we found ourselves alone in the garage, sorting through decades of accumulated tools. How are the kids? She asked quietly. Good. Emily's starting soccer. James is obsessed with dinosaurs. Mark told me he's been generous with updates. She hesitated. And photos. I watched her carefully as she organized screwdrivers by size. No theatrics, no tears, just steady, useful work. I never expected to see my sister behave with such dignity. You seem different, I observed. Therapy twice a week for 15 months. Jobs at 3 different places before finding one that stuck. Living in a studio apartment I can actually afford. She offered a small, self-deprecating smile. Amazing. What reality will teach you when you have no choice but to live in it. We worked in silence for a while. I haven't bought anything non-essential in a year, she said suddenly. Not even a coffee. I pack lunches. I take the bus. I budget to the dollar. Good for you. It's not for praise. It's just information. Evidence of change. I nodded. Noted. The day my grandfather moved to the retirement community, we all gathered at his house. The house where my parents would now live under his strict conditions. My father looked smaller somehow, less imposing. My mother, more thoughtful. The financial counselor will meet with you weekly at first, my grandfather told them. His reports come directly to me. We understand, my mother said. No argument, no indignation at the oversight. One missed payment, one unauthorized expenditure, and the arrangement ends, he continued. My father nodded. We're grateful for the opportunity. Grateful, a word I'd never heard him use sincerely. Looking back at that moment, I realized the complete role reversal that had occurred. The power dynamics had inverted. The manipulators now lived at the mercy of clear boundaries and consequences. After my grandfather was settled in his new apartment, I prepared to fly home. My sister caught me in the retirement community parking lot. I know you're still angry, she said. You have every right to be. But I want you to know that when Mom and Dad talk about you now, it's different. They speak with regret, with shame for how they treated you. Dad cried when he saw pictures of James in the dinosaur costume you bought him for Halloween. Crocodile tears. Maybe, but I've never seen him cry before. Not once in 35 years. I didn't know what to do with this information, with the possibility that genuine remorse might exist where I'd experienced only entitlement and exploitation. Time will tell, I said finally. Actions, not words. She nodded. That's fair. I came back 3 months later when my grandfather needed minor surgery. My parents had maintained the house immaculately. The financial counselor reported perfect. Compliance with the budget. No missed payments, no unauthorized expenditures. They've started putting aside a small emergency fund, he told me. Your father even asked me to help him understand his credit score. My mother had taken a second part-time job. My father had started teaching neighborhood kids basic carpentry on weekends. Small steps toward self-sufficiency. I didn't fully trust the transformation. Not yet. But I couldn't deny the evidence. Accumulating before me. The holidays approached again. 3 years since that fateful voicemail. 3 years of dismantling and rebuilding. 3 years of liberation and growth. I never imagined that my act of self-preservation would trigger such profound changes in everyone involved. My annual Christmas gathering had become a tradition. This year, I hesitated over the guest list. Mark would bring the children, of course. My grandfather would attend. My friends, the extended family members who had stood by me. But what about my parents? My sister? I discussed it with my grandfather during our weekly call. "They haven't asked to be included," he said. "They know the ball is in your court." Do they deserve inclusion? He considered this. Deserve is a complicated concept. They've maintained their end of our agreement perfectly. They live modestly. They work hard. They express regret for their past behavior without expecting forgiveness. Whether that merits inclusion in your life is entirely your decision. I thought about it for days. The exploitation, the manipulation, the threats, the public shaming, and then the subsequent struggles, the loss of status, the hard lessons, the apparent change. Finally, I made my decision. I sent formal invitations to my sister and my parents. Separate envelopes, clear boundaries, optional attendance. Christmas dinner, 4 p.m., RSVP required, no gifts necessary. All three responded within days. Simple acceptance, no emotional manipulation, no presumption. The day arrived, my home filled with the now familiar holiday preparations. But an undercurrent of tension remained. How would they behave? Was this genuine change or elaborate performance? My sister arrived first, alone. She handed me a small envelope. Not a gift, just a token of appreciation for the invitation. Inside was a handwritten note and a check. "This repays 1% of what I owe you financially. The debt of manipulation and emotional exploitation can never be repaid, but I acknowledge it existed." The check is a symbol, not an erasure. A token amount, but the acknowledgement meant more than the money. My parents arrived next. My father had aged visibly. Gray hair, lines around his eyes. My mother carried a homemade pie, nothing extravagant. "Thank you for including us," she said simply. "We understand the privilege this represents." No dramatic reunion, no tearful embraces, just adults acknowledging a complex history with cautious steps forward. Dinner proceeded with surprising ease. My parents interacted respectfully with Mark and the children. My sister engaged politely with my friends. Everyone maintained appropriate boundaries. No one pressured for closeness that hadn't been earned. I found myself observing them throughout the evening, looking for cracks in the facade, for hints of the old manipulative patterns. I saw only careful, conscious behavior, people aware of their past transgressions, not presuming forgiveness, simply grateful for inclusion. After everyone left, I sat alone by the Christmas tree, the same spot where I'd sat 3 years ago after receiving that fateful voicemail, the threat that had catalyzed my liberation. My revenge had been complete in ways I never anticipated, not through their destruction, but through their transformation. I had dismantled the power dynamics that enabled their exploitation. I had exposed the truth that shattered their carefully constructed facade. And in doing so, I'd forced them to face reality without me as their safety net. The family that had once used me as their personal ATM now lived within their means. The people who had excluded me from their celebrations now understood the privilege of inclusion. The manipulators who had threatened legal action when I withdrew support now expressed gratitude for basic courtesy. I hadn't just escaped their exploitation. I had fundamentally altered the system that enabled it. Christmas wasn't off after all. It had simply been transformed, from obligation to choice, from exploitation to respect, from manipulation to honesty. The most complete revenge wasn't their destruction. It was my freedom, and perhaps, unexpectedly, their redemption.